The snow fell like broken glass that Friday afternoon, each flake a shard of winter's cruelty, cutting through the thin fabric of pretense that Winter Ashford had wrapped around herself for the past 2 years. She stood in the center of chaos, 50 Harley-Davidsons growling like caged thunder on one side, riot police with shields raised on the other. Her hand trembled as she held the USB drive above her head, a tiny piece of plastic that held enough truth to burn down empires. Behind her, Silas Reaper Ashford sat motionless on his Road King, arms crossed, face carved from stone. Her father, president of the Iron Reapers Motorcycle Club, a man whose word was law across 3 states, whose silence could make grown men confess their sins. In front of her, Clayton Durant knelt in the slush, wrists zip-tied behind his back, blood streaming from his nose. The golden boy, the untouchable one. Now just another criminal caught in the light. Winter's voice cut through the sirens in the wind. You want to know how a 17-year-old girl brought down a district attorney? I'll tell you. I stopped being invisible. The lead detective stepped forward, hand outstretched for the drive. Winter's fingers closed around it. But first, you need to understand how we got here. Because this story doesn't start with me. It starts with a boy nobody saw and a choice nobody expected. She looked back at her father. Reaper's jaw tightened. He knew what was coming. The truth. All of it. 24 hours ago, Winter said, her breath forming clouds in the frozen air. I was nobody. Just another girl trying to survive high school. Just another liar pretending to be normal. Riverside Academy looked like every other private school in Connecticut. Red brick, white columns, manicured lawns hiding manicured secrets. Winter Ashford moved through its halls like a ghost in designer jeans, carefully constructed smile in place, cheerleading uniform crisp and clean. Winnie, they called her here, sweet Winnie with the perfect grades and the perfect life. Nobody knew that Winnie Ashford didn't exist. The girl wearing her skin was someone else entirely. Someone who'd learned to field strip a Glock at age 10. Someone who could read a room for threats before she read it for faces. Someone whose bedtime stories had been about loyalty and brotherhood and the difference between the lump and justice. But Riverside Academy didn't need to know about Winter. They needed Winnie. And Winnie was very good at being invisible in plain sight. She was at her locker switching books for fourth period when she saw it happen. Again. Cassian Marlowe walked past with his head down, shoulders hunched against invisible blows. He wore the same faded jacket he always wore, too big for his thin frame, patched at the elbows with mismatched fabric, one pocket sewn shut with what looked like fishing line. His dark hair fell across his face like a curtain, hiding eyes that Winter had never once seen meet anyone else's. The invisible boy. That's what she'd heard Sarah Martinez call him once. Not cruel, just observational. Cassian Marlowe existed in the spaces between people's attention. He sat in the back of every class, never raised his hand, never spoke unless called on. The teachers looked through him. The students looked past him. Except for Clayton Durant and his crew. They saw Cassian just fine. Yo, Sparrow! Clayton's voice carried down the hallway, honey smooth with poison underneath. He leaned against the lockers with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. Quarterback, honor roll, son of the most powerful DA in the state. Untouchable. Still wearing that homeless shelter special? Cassian kept walking. His hand tightened on his backpack strap. Knuckles white, but his pace didn't change. One foot in front of the other, eyes down, invisible. Winter's locker door blocked her face, but she could see everything through the ventilation slits. Could see Clayton push off the lockers and fall into step behind Cassian. Could see Bryce Morrison and Tyler Kent flank them like wolves cutting a deer from the herd. I'm talking to you, street rat. Clayton's hand shot out, grabbed the back of Cassian's jacket, yanked him to a stop. This was the moment Winter had seen 100 times before. The moment when teachers were conveniently in their classrooms. When other students suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. When the invisible boy would become even more invisible, folding in on himself like paper in a fire. Winter's hand froze on her calculus textbook. Her father's voice echoed in her head, words spoken over 1,000 family dinners at the clubhouse. We protect those who can't protect themselves. That's the code. That's what separates us from the animals. But another voice whispered too. Her own voice. The one that had begged Reaper 2 years ago. Please, Dad, just let me be normal. Just let me have this one thing. I promise I won't blow my cover. I promise I'll be careful. And Reaper, who'd never broken a promise in his life, had said yes. On one condition, nobody at school could know who she was. No patches, no clubhouse, no Iron Reapers. Just Winnie, normal girl with a normal life. Winter closed her locker softly. The lock clicked like a cell door. She turned left toward Mrs. Patterson's English class, away from the scene unfolding behind her. Cassian's quiet, "Please, I'm just trying to get to class," followed her down the hallway. She kept walking. This was survival. This was the price of normal. She couldn't save everyone, couldn't fix everything. Getting involved meant questions. Questions meant exposure. Exposure meant losing the one thing she'd fought for, the chance to be something other than Reaper's daughter. But her hands shook as she slid into her seat by the window. And when Mrs. Patterson started talking about sacrifice and redemption in The Great Gatsby, Winter stared at the snow beginning to fall outside and thought about all the sacrifices nobody wrote books about, all the small betrayals that happened in silence, all the invisible boys that nobody saved. Her phone buzzed against her thigh. Winter glanced at the screen under her desk, a text from an unknown number. "They're moving her tonight, same place, same time. That's 6 now. When are you going to do something?" Winter's jaw clenched. She deleted the text just like she deleted the 47 others before it, just like she'd delete the ones that would come after. Because Winter Ashford wasn't just pretending to be normal at school. She was pretending to be normal, period. Pretending she hadn't spent the last 2 months documenting something that made her stomach turn and her hands shake. 6 girls. 6 missing girls from Riverside Academy, all in the last academic year. Girls nobody missed. Girls from foster care, from broken homes, from families too poor or too broken to ask questions. Girls who were invisible long before they disappeared. Winter had their faces memorized, had their case files, what little existed, saved on an encrypted drive, had photos and timestamps in a pattern that was so obvious it made her want to scream. But she was 17. Nobody listened to 17-year-old girls, especially when they accused the untouchable of the unthinkable. She tried, twice. Once with Principal Watkins, who'd patted her hand and suggested she was stressed from college applications. Once with Officer Morrison, the school resource officer, who'd taken notes and done exactly nothing. So Winter had stopped trying to convince adults and started building evidence. Real evidence. The kind that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. If you're not going to act, at least pass the info to someone who will. Winter's thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to respond, wanted to explain that she was building a case, that she needed ironclad proof, that she couldn't just accuse without. The dismissal bell rang. Winter shoved her phone in her pocket and gathered her books. Friday afternoon, weekend ahead. She had plans to review her evidence again, cross-reference 3 more months of attendance records, maybe find the connection she was missing. But first, she had to survive the walk to the parking lot where her ride waited. Not her father, never her father at school. One of the prospects, in a normal car, meeting her at the gas station 2 blocks away like always. Winter pulled her coat tight and headed for the side exit. The snow was falling harder now, big fat flakes that stuck to everything. The weather report that morning had warned about a nor'easter pushing down from Canada. 12 to 18 inches expected, temperature dropping to -10. She was almost to the door when she heard Clayton's voice behind her. "Hey, Winnie, wait up." Winter's blood went cold. She turned slowly, smile automatic. "Hey, Clay, what's up?" Clayton Durant looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog. 6'2", quarterback build, sandy hair styled with product that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. His Letterman jacket was pristine. His smile was perfect. His eyes were empty. "Crazy storm coming in." He nodded at the windows where the snow was already obscuring the parking lot. "I'm heading out early. Want a ride?" Every instinct Winter had, the ones honed by growing up in a clubhouse full of men who could read danger like other people read newspapers, screamed at her to say no. "That's really nice, but I've got a ride." She kept her voice light, easy. just Winnie turning down a friendly offer. Come on. Clayton stepped closer. Not threatening, not yet, just persistent. The buses are going to be a nightmare. I've got the Beamer. Heated seats, satellite radio. Seriously, I'm good. Winter shifted her backpack, angling her body toward the exit, creating distance without making it obvious. Clayton's smile didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Something cold. You sure? Because I feel like you've been avoiding me lately. Just busy with college apps and... Right, college apps. His hand reached out, not touching her, just hovering near her elbow, claiming space. You know, you never did answer me about homecoming. Dance is in 2 weeks. This was dangerous ground. Winter could feel it. Clayton Durant wasn't used to being told no. His father was the DA. His mother sat on the school board. He'd been quarterback since sophomore year, honor roll since kindergarten. The world bent around Clayton Durant, and he'd learned to expect it. Clay, I'm really flattered, but what? The smile was still there, but the warmth had drained from his voice like water from a broken glass. You too good to go with me. That it? No, that's not, because that's what it looked like when you laughed at me in the cafeteria last week. You and Sarah giggling like I was some kind of joke. Winter's mind raced. She remembered laughing with Sarah, some meme on her friend's phone, nothing to do with Clayton. But in his head, everything was about Clayton. We weren't laughing at you, Winter said carefully. Sarah showed me. Save it. Clayton's hand dropped. You know what? Forget the ride. Forget homecoming. Forget all of it. He turned and walked away, but there was something in his stride that made Winter's instincts scream louder. Something purposeful. Something planned. She should have listened to those instincts. But she was tired of listening to instincts, tired of reading every room for threats, tired of being Reaper's daughter instead of just Winter. So she pushed through the side exit and into the storm, pulling her hood up against the wind, and told herself that Clayton Durant was just another entitled rich kid throwing a tantrum. The cold hit her like a fist. The temperature had dropped 10 degrees in the last hour. The snow was already ankle deep, and the parking lot was emptying fast. Students ran for their cars, engines starting, taillights disappearing into the white. Winter's phone buzzed. Text from the prospect. Running late. Accident on 95. 20 mins. 20 minutes in this storm. Winter looked around for shelter. The school would lock up in 5 minutes. The buses were pulling out. Her options were limited. Winnie! Winter turned. Sarah Martinez was running toward her, cheerleading bag bouncing against her hip. Oh my God, this storm is insane. You need a ride? I've got one coming, Winter called back. You good? Yeah, my mom's on her way. You sure you're... A BMW pulled up between them, sleek and black and expensive. The driver's window rolled down. Clayton Durant leaned out, smiled back in place. Winnie, last chance. This storm's getting ugly. Sarah's eyes went wide. She looked at Winter, then at Clayton, then back at Winter. Her expression said everything. Don't get in that car. But Winter's phone buzzed again. Text from the prospect. Accident bad. State police closing the roads. Might be an hour. Can you get another ride? An hour. In -10 weather, in a storm that was getting worse by the minute. Winter looked at Clayton, at his perfect smile and his expensive car and his offered hand. Every instinct said no. But Winnie, sweet, normal Winnie who didn't see threats everywhere, who didn't read people like textbooks, who trusted that boys like Clayton Durant were exactly what they appeared to be, Winnie would say yes. Okay, Winter heard herself say. Thanks, Clay. Sarah grabbed her arm. Win, I can wait with you for your ride. It's fine. Winter pulled away gently. Really, it's just a ride. She climbed into the BMW. The interior smelled like leather and cologne and expensive mistakes. Clayton was already turning up the heat, adjusting the satellite radio to some pop station. See, he said, pulling out of the lot. Not so bad, right? Winter buckled her seatbelt and watched Sarah standing in the snow, phone already out, probably texting to make sure Winter was okay. Where do you live? Clayton asked. I'll put it in the GPS. Oh, Winter's mind raced. She couldn't give him the clubhouse address. You know what? Just drop me at the Starbucks on Maple. My dad picks me up there sometimes. Clayton's hands tightened on the wheel. Just slightly. Just enough for Winter to notice. Your dad, he said slowly. What's he do? Consulting. The lie came smooth as silk. Years of practice. Business stuff? Boring. Right, boring. Clayton turned left instead of right, away from town, toward the industrial district. Winter's pulse kicked up. Hey, Starbucks is the other way. Just making a quick stop first. Clayton's voice was casual, but his jaw was tight. Won't take long. Clay, seriously, the storm, I said it won't take long. Not casual anymore. Hard, cold. Winter's hand moved toward the door handle. They were only going about 20 miles per hour on the snowy road. She could jump, roll, run. She'd had training for this. Reaper had made sure of it. But Clayton's next words froze her solid. I know what you've been doing, Winnie. Or should I call you Winter? The world tilted. Winter's breath caught in her throat. I don't know what. The photos, the timestamps, the little investigation you have been running. Clayton's smile was gone now, replaced by something that made Winter's blood run ice cold. You're not as subtle as you think. He pulled into an empty parking lot behind the old Morrison factory. The place had been shut down for 5 years, windows boarded, chain-link fence rusted and broken. Perfect place for privacy. Perfect place where nobody would hear you scream. Clayton put the car in park and turned to face her fully. See, here's the thing about girls like you. You think you're so smart. Think you can play detective. Think you can stick your nose where it doesn't belong and there won't be consequences. Winter's hand was on the door handle now, thumb on the release. Let me out. Not yet. We're going to have a conversation first. Clayton pulled out his phone. Winter's phone. The one she'd left in her backpack in the back seat. You password protect everything. Smart. But your texts still show up on the lock screen. Very helpful. He held it up. Winter could see her recent messages. The unknown number. The warnings about the girls. So here's what's going to happen, Clayton said, his voice calm, reasonable, terrifying. You're going to delete everything you've collected, every photo, every file, every little note. And then you're going to forget you ever had questions about anything. And if I don't, Winter's voice was steadier than she felt. Clayton's laugh was sharp. You really want to find out? My dad's the DA, Winnie. He owns the cops. He owns the judges. He owns this whole goddamn town. You think anyone's going to believe some teenage girl over us? Us, plural. This wasn't just Clayton. This was bigger. So much bigger. I'll take my chances, Winter said, and popped the door handle. She got one foot out before Clayton grabbed her backpack, yanking her back. Winter twisted, using the move Chains had taught her, breaking his grip. She stumbled out into the snow, slipping on ice, catching herself on the car's hood. Clayton was out too, faster than she expected. He had her phone in one hand, her backpack in the other. You want to do this the hard way? Fine. He hurled her phone into a snowdrift 20 yards away, then her backpack in the opposite direction. Keys, wallet, everything, scattered into the white. Good luck finding those, Clayton said. He climbed back into his BMW, engine roaring. And Winnie, stay invisible. It's safer that way. The BMW fishtailed out of the lot, spraying slush. Winter stood there in her thin coat and her cheerleading uniform, watching the taillights disappear into the storm. The cold hit her then, really hit her. Not just the temperature, but the realization of where she was and what had just happened. The school was 3 miles away. The nearest gas station was 2 miles in the opposite direction. Her phone was somewhere in a snowdrift that was getting deeper by the second. The prospect wouldn't know where to find her. Reaper thought she was safely on her way to the pickup point. Nobody knew she was here. Winter wrapped her arms around herself and started walking toward her backpack. The wind cut through her cheerleading shell like it was tissue paper. Her legs, bare from mid-thigh down except for thin tights, went numb almost immediately. She found her backpack half buried already, pulled it out with shaking hands. Inside, textbooks, a water bottle, some pens. Nothing that would help. No phone, no jacket, nothing. The phone. She had to find the phone. That was her evidence. 2 months of work, names, dates, faces, everything she needed to prove what Clayton and his father were doing. Winter waded through the snow, searching. Her fingers lost feeling. Her teeth started to chatter. The phone had a purple case. Should be easy to spot against the white. Should be. But the snow was falling so hard now that visibility was down to maybe 10 feet. And the drifts were already knee-deep. And Winter's legs weren't working right anymore, stumbling and catching on nothing. She didn't know how long she searched. 5 minutes, 20. Time was doing something strange, stretching and compressing. Her thoughts were getting fuzzy at the edges, like someone had smudged them with an eraser. This is bad, some distant part of her brain whispered. This is hypothermia. This is how people die. But she kept searching because the phone had the evidence, and the evidence mattered, and if she could just find the evidence, then she could prove. Winter's legs gave out. She hit the ground hard, snow cushioning nothing. The cold was inside her now, in her bones, making everything slow and heavy and wrong. She needed to get up, needed to move, needed to, hey, you okay? A voice, male, young, cutting through the white noise of wind and Winter's failing thoughts. Winter looked up through frozen eyelashes. A figure stood over her, backlit by the gray sky. For a second, she thought it was an angel. That would be ironic. Reaper's daughter dying and going to heaven. But angels probably didn't wear patched jackets that had seen better years. And they probably didn't look like they were half frozen themselves. Skinny frames shaking in a t-shirt underneath the coat. Cassian Marlowe, the invisible boy. Winter tried to speak, but her lips wouldn't work right. Cold. Yeah, Cassian dropped to his knees beside her. His eyes, the eyes she'd never seen look at anyone, locked on her face with startling intensity. What happened? Where's your coat? Didn't have... The words wouldn't come. Winter's brain knew what she wanted to say, but her mouth wasn't cooperating. Cassian looked around at the empty lot, at the snow falling like a burial shroud, at Winter in her cheerleading uniform turning blue in the storm. His hands moved to his jacket zipper. What are you doing? Winter managed to get out. You need this more than I do. Cassian pulled off his jacket, the coat that Winter had seen him wear every single day for the past year. The coat that was clearly too big, clearly old, clearly the only one he owned. No, Winter tried to push it away, but her arms weren't working right. You'll freeze. I'll be fine. I live close. The lie was obvious even through Winter's hypothermic fog. But Cassian was already draping the jacket over her shoulders, pulling it tight, tucking the collar up around her ears. The fabric was still warm from his body. And something else. It was old, yes. Patched, yes. But it was quality underneath. Heavy, well-made. The kind of coat someone had bought once, intending it to last. Can you stand? Cassian hooked his hands under Winter's arms, lifting. She tried to help, got her legs under her, stood on shaking knees while Cassian kept one arm around her waist. Bus stop, he said, 2 blocks. Can you make it? Winter nodded, not trusting her voice. They started walking, Winter leaning heavily on this skinny kid who weighed maybe 120 soaking wet. The wind cut through his t-shirt. She could feel him shaking, but he didn't complain, just kept them moving, one foot in front of the other. What's your dad's number? Cassian asked when they reached the bus stop. It was barely shelter, a plastic shell with 2 benches and graffiti on the walls, but it blocked some wind. I'll call him from the payphone. Winter rattled off the number, her real number, Reaper's direct line, the one she wasn't supposed to use unless it was an emergency. This qualified. Cassian fed quarters into the ancient payphone. It rang once before Reaper's voice came through, hard as granite. Yeah. Hi, this is Cassian Marlowe. His voice was steadier than Winter expected. I'm calling about your daughter, Winter. She needs help. There was a pause, a long pause. When Reaper spoke again, his voice had gone from hard to lethal. What happened? Where is she? She's with me. Bus stop at Maple and 4th. She got stuck in the storm, but she's okay. I mean, she's cold, but she's warming up. Who did this? Not what happened. Who? Like violence was already decided, just needed a target. I don't know the whole story. Cassian glanced at Winter, who was curled on the bench, the jacket pulled up to her chin. She said something about keys. Put her on. Cassian brought the receiver to Winter. She took it with shaking hands. Dad? Baby girl. Reaper's voice cracked just slightly, just enough for Winter to hear the fear underneath the rage. You okay? I'm okay, promise, just cold. Who did this? Winter closed her eyes. This was the moment when her normal life ended, the moment when Reaper's world came crashing into Riverside Academy. But sitting there in Cashin's coat, watching him stand in the wind, in nothing but a t-shirt because he'd given her his only protection, Winter realized something. Normal was a lie. Normal was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. Not when girls were disappearing. Not when boys like Cassian nearly froze to death, saving girls like her. Not when Winter knew the truth and kept silent because she was scared of losing something that didn't really exist. Clayton Durant, Winter said clearly, and his father, the DA. They're running something, Dad. Something bad. And I have proof. Another pause. Winter could hear engines in the background. Motorcycles. Lots of them. We're coming, Reaper said. Stay where you are. Don't move. And Winter? Yeah. Who's the boy? Winter looked at Cassian, standing in the wind, arms wrapped around himself, shaking so hard his teeth clattered. The invisible boy who'd seen her, who'd saved her. His name's Cassian Marlowe, Winter said. And Dad? He gave me his jacket. His only jacket. He's freezing because of me. When Reaper spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost gentle. Put him on. Winter handed the phone to Cassian. He took it reluctantly. Sir? Winter couldn't hear what Reaper said, but she watched Cassian's face change, watched his eyes widen, watched him nod slowly even though Reaper couldn't see it. Okay, Cassian said finally. Yes, sir, I understand. He hung up and turned to Winter. He said to tell you that I just made the best decision of my life, even if I don't know it yet. Cassian paused. What did he mean? Winter smiled despite the cold, despite everything. My dad pays his debts, and you just saved his daughter's life. That creates a debt. I don't want, doesn't matter what you want. That's not how it works. Winter patted the bench beside her. You should sit down, conserve warmth. I'm fine. You're shaking so hard you look like you're having a seizure. Sit down. Cassian sat. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue. He wrapped his arms tighter around himself, trying to fold inward, make himself smaller against the cold. Why'd you do it? Winter asked. Give me your coat. You don't even know me. Cassian was quiet for a long moment. Then, you were dying. I wasn't. Math was simple. That's not math. I know what it is. Cassian's voice was soft but firm. My mom used to say that everyone's got a choice every day. You can walk past or you can stop. Most people walk past. It's easier. Safer. He looked at Winter with those eyes that spent so much time hidden. I'm tired of walking past. Winter felt something crack open in her chest. This boy, this invisible, ignored, bullied boy, had just articulated the exact thing she'd been struggling with for 2 months. The choice between safe and right, between invisible and involved. I walked past you, Winter said quietly. Earlier today, when Clayton I saw it. I saw him grab you, and I walked away. You had your reasons. That's not good enough. Winter's voice was stronger now, anger warming her from the inside. I've been walking past for 2 years. Walking past you. Walking past other kids getting bullied. Walking past girls disappearing. All because I wanted to be normal. Because I was scared of... She stopped. Because the truth was too big and too complicated and too raw. But Cassian seemed to understand anyway. Scared of being seen, he said simply. I get it. No, you don't. I've been invisible on purpose for 16 years. Cassian's laugh was bitter. Trust me, I get it. Being seen means being vulnerable. Means people can hurt you. So you make yourself small. Make yourself quiet. Hope that if they can't see you, they can't hurt you. Winter stared at him. But it doesn't work. No, Cassian shook his head. It doesn't. They hurt you anyway. And then you realize you made yourself invisible for nothing. They sat in silence while the wind howled and the snow fell, and somewhere in the distance the rumble of motorcycles grew louder. Winter pulled Cassian's jacket tighter. She could feel something in the inner pocket. A photograph from the thickness, worn soft from handling. "This coat," she said, "it's important to you." Cassian's jaw tightened. "It was my mom's last gift, before she died." "Oh, oh God." "Cassian. She bought it 3 sizes too big so I'd grow into it." His voice was carefully steady. "That's why it looks weird. She knew she wouldn't be around to buy me another one, so she made sure this one would last." Winter's eyes burned, not from the cold. "And you gave it to me." Like I said, math was simple, but his voice cracked on the last word. The motorcycle rumble was close now, very close. Winter looked up and saw them coming through the snow like avenging angels. 50 bikes, riding in perfect formation, led by a massive road king with a bald man who radiated controlled violence. Reaper. The bikes pulled up to the bus stop surrounding it, engines idling in perfect synchronization. Reaper swung off his bike and covered the distance to Winter in 3 strides. He knelt in front of her, hands framing her face, checking her eyes, her color, her alertness. "I'm okay, Dad." Winter's voice was small. "I promise." Reaper pulled her into a hug that was gentle, despite the rage she could feel vibrating through him. "We'll talk about the okay part later. Right now I need to know." He pulled back, looked at Cassian, who'd stood up and backed against the plastic wall of the bus stop like he was trying to disappear. "You're the boy." It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." Cassian's voice barely carried over the wind. Reaper looked at him for a long moment, took in the thin t-shirt, the shaking frame, the blue lips. Then he did something Winter had only seen him do maybe 3 times in her entire life. He took off his own jacket. Not just any jacket, his president's cut. The leather vest with iron reapers across the back and president patched on the front. The vest worth more than most people's cars. The vest that meant something in a world most people didn't understand. Reaper crossed to Cassian and draped it over the boy's shoulders. "This is my cut," Reaper said, his voice carrying to every brother on every bike. "Worth about 3 grand. Custom leather, hand-tooled patches. I've worn it for 15 years. He adjusted it on Cassian's thin frame. "Anyone who messes with this boy messes with me. Anyone who touches him answers to the Iron Reapers. Anyone who even looks at him wrong will learn what it means to have an MC on their ass." Cassian stood frozen, swimming in leather that was way too big, looking like a child playing dress-up in his father's clothes. But Reaper wasn't done. He turned to face Winter, and his expression was complicated. Pride and fear and anger and love all mixed together. "You said Clayton Durant did this, and that you have proof of something bigger." Winter nodded. "My phone. It's in the snow, back at the Morrison plant parking lot. Everything's on there. 2 months of investigation, 6 missing girls, a pattern, evidence. Chains." Reaper didn't raise his voice, but a massive man with a gray beard detached from the group. "Take 5 brethren, find Winter's phone. Search every inch of that lot if you have to." "On it, Prez." Chains and 5 others peeled off, engines roaring into the storm. Reaper looked back at Winter. "And the DA?" "Victor Durant, Clayton's father." Winter's voice was stronger now, fed by anger and cold and the feeling of finally being heard. "I think he's using his position to cover up a trafficking operation. Girls are disappearing and nobody's investigating because Victor controls who investigates what." The silence that followed was colder than the storm. "Get on my bike," Reaper said finally. "Both of you. We're going home." Winter stood, Cassian's jacket still wrapped around her. "Dad, Cassian needs—" "I know what he needs. Medical attention, food, warmth. He's getting all of it." Reaper's eyes were hard. "He saved your life. That creates a debt, and I always pay my debts." He helped Winter onto the back of his Road King, then turned to Cassian. The boy looked terrified, standing there in a president's cut that marked him as untouchable, surrounded by 50 bikers who just claimed him as protected. "You coming, kid?" Reaper asked, not unkindly. I can't." Cassian's voice broke. "I have nowhere." "Yeah, you do." Reaper handed him a helmet. "You got the clubhouse. You got a bed. You got a family now, if you want it. But first, we get you warm. Questions can wait." Cassian took the helmet with shaking hands. climbed onto the back of Chain's bike when the VP returned without the phone, but with a determined look that said they'd keep searching. The Iron Reapers pulled out in formation, 50 bikes moving as one through the storm. Winter held tight to her father's waist, Cassian's jacket warm around her shoulders, and watched the snow fall, like the end of one life and the beginning of something else entirely. Behind them, the bus stop stood empty, and somewhere in the industrial district, Clayton Durant's phone was ringing. His father's voice, cold and precise. "We have a problem. The Ashford girl knows. Handle it." But Winter didn't know that yet. Didn't know that by accepting help, by being seen, by choosing to speak up, she just painted a target on her back the size of Connecticut. All she knew was that the invisible boy had saved her life. This was the world she'd just brought Cassian Marlowe into, dripping snow and shivering in a president's cut that marked him as protected. The convoy pulled through the gates at 6:15. The sun was already setting, turning the snow blue-gray in the fading light. Winter climbed off her father's bike on legs that still weren't working quite right, but the clubhouse was warm and bright with lights, and she could smell coffee and something cooking, probably Wrench's famous chili. Inside. Now. Reaper's voice left no room for argument. Winter headed for the door, but stopped when she realized Cassian wasn't following. He stood next to Chains's bike, arms wrapped around himself despite the president's cut, staring at the clubhouse like it was a dragon's lair. "Hey," Winter walked back to him. "It's okay, nobody's going to hurt you." "I shouldn't be here." Cassian's voice was barely audible. "This is your family. I'm nobody. You saved my life. That makes you somebody." Winter held out her hand. "Come on, at least get warm before you decide to run." Cassian looked at her hand like it was a foreign object. Then slowly he took it. His fingers were ice cold, and Winter realized with a jolt that while she'd been wrapped in his jacket, he'd been wearing nothing but a t-shirt for over an hour. His skin was pale, lips still tinged blue, and when she squeezed his hand, he didn't squeeze back. Just let his hand rest limply in hers like he'd forgotten how to hold on to things. "Dad," Winter called. "He needs medical attention. Like now." Reaper materialized beside them, took one look at Cassian, and cursed. "Mouse, get the first aid kit and every blanket in the building. Wrench, hot coffee and soup. Move." They got Cassian inside and onto the couch closest to the fireplace. Mouse, a wiry brother with surprisingly gentle hands and an EMT certification he never talked about, appeared with an armful of supplies. Within minutes, Cassian was wrapped in 4 heated blankets, had a mug of coffee in his hands, and was being checked for frostbite with professional efficiency. "Fingers and toes are going to hurt like hell when the feeling comes back. But you'll keep them all," Mouse announced. "Core temps low, but not critical. You got lucky, kid." "He got selfless," Reaper corrected, standing with 8 arms crossed, watching. "There's a difference." Winter sat on the arm of the couch, still wearing Cassian's jacket because taking it off felt wrong somehow, like breaking a promise. She watched color slowly return to his face, watched him stop shaking quite so violently, watched his eyes take in the clubhouse with the careful observation of someone who'd learned to catalog exits and threats. "Winter," Reaper's voice pulled her attention. "My office now." This was it, the conversation Winter had been dreading for 2 years. She followed her father down the hall to his office, a room that was part command center, part sanctuary. The walls were covered in photos, brothers past and present, Winter at various ages, Winter's mother in her wedding dress, a memorial wall with names and dates of brothers who'd fallen, and on the desk a framed photo of Winter at age 5, sitting on a Harley, gap-toothed grin enormous. Reaper closed the door and leaned against his desk, arms still crossed. "Talk." Winter took a breath. 6 girls have gone missing from Riverside Academy in the last 9 months. All of them from vulnerable backgrounds, foster care, poor families, broken homes. Nobody reported them missing because nobody cared enough to notice they were gone. And you've been investigating this for how long? 2 months? Maybe closer to 3. Alone. It wasn't a question, but Winter answered anyway. "I tried to tell adults. Principal Watkins thought I was stressed. Officer Morrison took notes and did nothing. I realized nobody was going to believe me without proof, so I started building proof. And you didn't think to tell me. Reaper's voice was dangerously quiet. I couldn't. If I told you, you'd pull me out of school. You'd handle it yourself. And I needed, Winter's voice cracked. I needed to not be just your daughter. I needed to be someone who could fix things on her own. Reaper was quiet for a long moment. Your mother used to say the same thing. Winter looked up sharply. Reaper so rarely talked about Mom. 5 years gone, and sometimes it felt like she'd been erased from existence except for the photos on the walls. She hated that I tried to protect her, Reaper continued, his voice softer now. Said I was treating her like she was made of glass when she was made of steel. We fought about it. A lot. He moved to the window, looked out at the compound. Then one night she went to help a runaway girl. 16-year-old kid trying to escape her stepdad. Your mother didn't tell me because she knew I'd say it was too dangerous. She went alone. Winter's throat tightened. She knew this story, knew how it ended. The stepdad found them, Reaper said. Shot your mother twice before she got the girl to safety. Died in the ambulance before I could get there. He turned back to Winter. Last thing she said to the paramedic was, tell my daughter that protection isn't chains, it's wings. A tear slid down Winter's cheek. She'd never heard that part before. I've been trying to protect you the wrong way, Reaper said, keeping you in a cage called normal, thinking if I just kept you away from this world, you'd be safe. He crossed to her, cupped her face in his calloused hands. But you're her daughter. You were never going to stay in the cage. I'm sorry I lied, Winter whispered. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to. Reaper pulled her into a hug. But here's how this works from now on. You don't investigate alone. You don't put yourself in danger without backup. And you sure as hell don't get left in a snowstorm by some entitled prick without there being consequences. Dad, non-negotiable, Winter. You want to see this through? Fine. But you do it with the full weight of the Iron Reapers behind you. Deal? Winter pulled back, looked at her father's face, hard and soft at the same time, fierce and loving. Deal. Good. Now, this phone Clayton threw in the snow, everything's on there? Everything. Photos, recordings, attendance records, pattern analysis, 2 months of evidence. Chains didn't find it in the first sweep, but he's got brothers still searching. We'll find it. Reaper moved to his desk, pulled out a laptop. But I want you to tell me everything you remember, every detail. We're going to build a secondary case from scratch. They worked for an hour. Winter talked, Reaper typed, and slowly a picture emerged. 6 girls, all aged 14 to 17, all from the margins. First girl disappeared 9 months ago. Sarah Cooper, foster kid, reported as a runaway. Nobody looked too hard. Second girl, Melissa Torres, parents were addicts, assumed she'd left home. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the same pattern. Moan wrote off as runaways or troubled teens who'd chosen to disappear. But Winter had found their social media accounts, active right up until they vanished, had found their homework still in their lockers, had found their few precious possessions left behind. These girls hadn't run. They'd been taken. And you think Clayton Durant is involved? Reaper asked. I know he is. I recorded him 6 weeks ago. Winter closed her eyes, remembering. There was a party at Bryce Morrison's house. I saw Clayton go into a room with a freshman girl, Alicia Martin. She looked scared. I followed them, pressed my phone's voice recorder against the door. What did you hear? Clayton telling her about a modeling opportunity, said his father had connections, said she could make real money if she came to a meeting. Winter's hands clenched. The girl was from foster care. Desperate. She agreed. 3 days later, she stopped coming to school. You have this recording? On my phone. The phone that was somewhere in a snowdrift, maybe already destroyed by water damage or by Clayton going back to find it. We'll get the phone, Reaper said, reading her expression. And if we don't, we'll find another way. What about the DA? You said you think he's involved. I have suspicions, not proof. But Dad, Victor Durant has been DA for 15 years. He controls what cases get investigated and by who. Every one of these girls' disappearances got buried. No media coverage, no Amber Alerts, no detective work. Just case files marked runaway and forgotten. Winter leaned forward. And Clayton's not smart enough to run an operation like this alone. He's the lure. Someone else is the trap. Reaper's jaw tightened. Victor Durant prosecuted me twice. First time, I beat the charges. Evidence was weak. Second time, he got me on a technicality. 30 days in county. He's been trying to bring down the Iron Reapers for years. What if that's connected, Winter asked. What if he's not just covering up trafficking? What if he's planning to frame the MC for it? The silence that followed was arctic. That would be smart, Reaper said finally. Take down the biggest MC in the state, pad his conviction rate, probably run for attorney general on the publicity. He stood up, paced. But it's one thing to frame us. It's another to actually traffic teenage girls to do it. Unless he doesn't see them as people, just as tools. Winter's voice was hard. That's what guys like Victor Durant do. They look at kids from foster care, from poverty, from broken homes, and they see expendable resources. Nobody to miss them. Nobody to ask questions. A knock on the door interrupted them. Chains stuck his head in. Prez, we got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where state police just set up a checkpoint on Highway 9. They're stopping everyone, running IDs, checking vehicles. Chain's expression was grim. They're looking for someone. Reaper and Winter exchanged glances. Looking for who? Reaper asked. Didn't say, but Prez, one of the troopers, asked specifically if we'd seen Winter Ashford. Winter's blood went cold. How would state police even know to look for her here? Chains continued. Unless someone told them. Victor Durant. Winter stood up. He knows. Clayton must have called him, told him I have evidence. And Victor's using his connections to find you before you can use that evidence. Reaper's face went hard. Chains, lock down the compound. Nobody in or out without my say-so. Get Mouse to check the kid. Cassian, make sure he's stable and get me Wade on the phone. The lawyer? Yeah, if state police come knocking, I want legal representation ready. Chains left. Reaper turned to Winter. You're staying here tonight. Tomorrow we figure out next moves. But right now you need food and rest. Dad, those girls will still be missing tomorrow. You can't help them if you're dead on your feet. He put a hand on her shoulder. I know you want to fix this tonight, but investigations take time. Strategy takes patience. Your mother taught me that. Winter wanted to argue, but exhaustion was hitting her like a wave. The adrenaline of the day was wearing off, leaving her hollow and shaky. Okay, but I want to check on Cassian first. They found him in the same spot on the couch, still wrapped in blankets. But he'd finished the coffee and soup, and some color had returned to his face. Mouse was packing up the medical kit. He'll be fine, Mouse told Reaper. Needs rest and warmth, but no permanent damage. Good work. Reaper clapped Mouse on the shoulder, then looked at Cassian. Kid, you got a place to stay tonight. Cassian's expression shuddered. I'll figure something out. That's not what I asked. I've been staying at the old Morrison auto shop. It's fine. It's abandoned and has no heat. Reaper's voice wasn't unkind, just factual. You were squatting. That's not fine. That's survival. Cassian looked away, shame coloring his pale cheeks. Here's what's going to happen, Reaper continued. You're staying here tonight. We've got guest rooms upstairs. Tomorrow we talk about longer-term arrangements, but tonight you sleep somewhere warm. Non-negotiable. I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's payment. Reaper sat down on the coffee table so he was eye level with Cassian. You saved my daughter's life. You gave her your only protection and nearly died doing it. That creates a debt. And in my world, debts get paid. So you're going to let me pay this debt by making sure you don't freeze to death in an abandoned building. We clear? Cassian looked at Winter, who nodded. He means it, and he doesn't take no for an answer. I don't know how to... Cassian's voice broke. I don't know how to be around people anymore. I've been alone for so long. Then you'll learn. Reaper stood up. Winter, show him to the guest room. Get him some clean clothes from my closet. They'll be big, but they'll work. Make sure he eats something else. Then you both get some sleep. Winter helped Cassian upstairs to one of the guest rooms, a simple space with a bed, a dresser, in a window overlooking the compound. She found clothes in Reaper's room, sweatpants, a t-shirt, a hoodie, all massive on Cassian's thin frame but warm. Bathroom's down the hall, Winter said. Hot water lasts forever. Towels are in the closet. If you need anything, I'm in the room at the end of the hall. Cassian stood in the middle of the room, holding the clothes, looking lost. Why are you doing this? Because you saved my life. That's not enough reason to— Yes, it is. Winter stepped closer. Cassian, listen to me. You were invisible because people chose not to see you. Well, I see you. My dad sees you. Everyone in this clubhouse sees you. And we don't leave family out in the cold. I'm not family. Not yet, but you could be. Winter smiled. Get some rest. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. She left him there, standing in a room that was probably nicer than anywhere he'd slept in months, and headed to her own room. Winter's room at the clubhouse was a time capsule. Posters from middle school, trophies from elementary school sports, books she'd read before she decided to be normal. She stripped off her cheerleading uniform, finally took off Cassian's jacket and hung it carefully on her chair, and stood in the shower until the water ran cold. When she emerged, there was a text on her phone. Her backup phone, the one Reaper insisted she keep at the clubhouse for emergencies. Unknown number. You made a mistake tonight. My father knows. Your father can't protect you forever. Delete everything and maybe we'll forget this happened. Clayton. Winter stared at the message. Then she took a screenshot and sent it to Reaper with a note. Evidence of witness intimidation. Adding to the file. She was done being scared. Done being invisible. Clayton Durant and his father had spent years making girls disappear, counting on nobody to care enough to look. But Winter cared, and now she had the resources of an entire motorcycle club behind her. Let them try to make her disappear. She fell asleep with Cassian's jacket in her arms, the smell of motor oil and sacrifice, and dreamed of her mother's voice. Protection isn't chains, it's wings. Winter woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot about the storm, about Clayton, about everything. Then reality crashed back, and she was up, dressed in jeans and a hoodie, and downstairs in under 5 minutes. The clubhouse kitchen was full of brothers. Wrench at the stove, flipping pancakes, Mouse pouring coffee, Chains reading the newspaper, and at the table, looking small and out of place, Cassian Marlowe wearing Reaper's sweatpants and hoodie, staring at a plate of food like he didn't know what to do with it. Morning, Sleeping Beauty, Wrench called when he saw Winter. Pancakes? Please, Winter slid into the seat next to Cassian. How'd you sleep? I didn't. Cassian's voice was hoarse. The bed was too soft, the quiet was too loud. I kept waiting for someone to kick me out. Nobody's kicking you out. Winter poured herself coffee. This is home now, or it can be if you want. I don't understand what you people want from me. Nothing. Reaper's voice came from the doorway. He looked like he'd been up all night, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes red-rimmed. We don't want anything from you, kid. We're just paying forward what was done for us. He crossed to the table, poured himself coffee. Chains, status report. Phone still hasn't turned up. Brothers searched the lot 3 more times. Either it's buried too deep or someone took it. Chains folded his newspaper. State police checkpoint, stayed active until 4 a.m., then packed up. Wade says if they try to question Winter, we lawyer up immediately. Good. Reaper looked at Winter. How much of your evidence did you back up? None of it. Everything was on that phone. Winter's stomach sank. I was going to upload to the cloud this weekend, but I wanted to organize it first, make sure the timeline was perfect. Then we rebuild from scratch. You said you had recordings, photos, documents. Where did you store the originals? Recordings were on my phone, photos too, but the documents— Winter sat up straight. The documents are in my locker at school. I printed everything because I was worried about digital traces, school records, attendance patterns, news articles about previous missing girls from other districts. How much is there? 2 binders, color-coded, cross-referenced. Winter had spent weeks building that archive. If we can get to my locker— School's closed for the weekend because of the storm. Chains pulled out his phone. But Monday morning we can access it. Monday might be too late. Cassian's quiet voice surprised everyone. All eyes turned to him. He shrank back slightly, then forced himself to continue. If Clayton knows Winter has evidence, he'll go after it. School's empty this weekend. Easy to break in, smash her locker, destroy everything. Silence. Then Reaper leaned forward. Kid's right. If I were Clayton, that's exactly what I'd do. So we get there first. Winter stood up. Tonight, after dark. I know the security system. There's a blind spot near the art wing. We can get in through the fire exit. No, Reaper's voice was flat. You're not breaking into your school. Then how do we? I didn't say we weren't breaking into your school. I said you weren't. Reaper looked at Chains. How many brothers do we have with B&E experience? Depends. We talking youthful indiscretions or actual skills? Chains grinned. Because Snake can crack any lock made before 2010, and Razor used to do security system installations before he patched in. Get them. We go tonight at midnight. Winter, you draw us a map of the school, exits, security cameras, where your locker is. We get in, get the evidence, get out. I should come with you, Winter protested. I know the layout better than... You're staying here where it's safe, that's final. But, Winter, Reaper's voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Your mother died trying to help someone. I'm not losing you the same way. You've done your part. You found the evidence. You identified the threat. Now let the adults handle the dangerous part. It went against every instinct Winter had, but looking at her father's face, seeing the fear underneath the authority, she understood. This wasn't about controlling her. It was about a man who'd already lost his wife and couldn't bear to lose his daughter too. Okay, Winter said quietly. I'll draw the map. She spent the next hour sketching the school layout, marking camera positions, noting which hallways had motion sensors. Cassian sat beside her, occasionally pointing out details she'd forgotten. He might have been invisible, but he'd been paying attention. The janitor's closet on the second floor has a ventilation shaft, Cassian said, tapping the map. It connects to the maintenance tunnels. If you need an alternate route out, that's it. Everyone looked at him. Cassian shrugged. I notice things. It's what invisible people do. You're not invisible anymore, kid, Wrench said gruffly. Get used to it. By noon, they had a plan. By 2 p.m., they had equipment. By 4 p.m., Winter was pacing the clubhouse like a caged animal, while Reaper and 6 brothers prepared for the infiltration. She was in the garage, watching them load up, when Cassian appeared beside her. They'll be okay. Your dad knows what he's doing. I know, it's just... Winter ran her hands through her hair. I should be there. It's my investigation. My evidence. It's not about ownership. It's about capability. Cassian leaned against the wall. Your dad's trained for this kind of thing. You're not. Letting him handle it isn't weakness. It's strategy. Winter looked at him. When did you get so wise? I've had a lot of time to think. Not much else to do when you're invisible. Cassian's smile was sad. You learn to watch, to analyze, to see patterns. Like the patterns with the missing girls? Yeah. Cassian was quiet for a moment. I knew something was wrong. Saw Clayton talking to girls who'd later disappear. Saw the expensive cars that would pick them up. But I didn't. I thought maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. You weren't. I know that now. But at the time, I told myself it wasn't my business, that I should stay invisible, stay safe. He looked at Winter with haunted eyes. How many girls could have been saved if I'd spoken up sooner? That's not on you. You were surviving. There's no shame in that. But there's shame in knowing and not acting. Cassian's voice was rough. You acted, even though you were scared, even though you could have stayed comfortable and safe. You chose to see them. That's the difference between us. No, Winter turned to face him fully. The difference is that I had resources, I had a family, I had backup. You didn't have any of that, but you still gave me your coat. You still saved my life. That's not staying invisible, Cassian. That's being a hero. Cassian looked away, but not before Winter saw the tears in his eyes. The girls who are still missing, he said after a moment, after we get your evidence, after we prove what Clayton and his father are doing, what happens to those girls? We find them. We bring them home. Winter's voice was steel. That's the mission. That's always been the mission. Cassian nodded slowly. Then, I want to help, however I can. I know I'm just a kid and I don't have skills like your dad's brothers, but I know that school better than anyone. I know where people hide things. I know where secrets are kept. You want in? I want those girls found. I want Clayton to pay for what he's done. I want... Cassian's voice broke. I want to stop being useless. You're not useless. Winter put her hand on his shoulder. You're family, and family helps family. They stood there in the garage, two teenagers who'd been invisible in their own ways, who'd found each other in a snowstorm, who'd decided that being seen was worth the risk. Upstairs, Reaper was gathering his team. In 3 hours, they'd infiltrate Riverside Academy. They'd crack Winter's locker, retrieve the evidence, and get out without being detected. At least that was the plan. What they didn't know was that at that exact moment, Clayton Durant was in his father's study, showing Victor the text he'd sent Winter. And Victor Durant was making a phone call to someone at the Connecticut State Police, calling in a favor. The trap was being set, and Winter, Cassian, and the Iron Reapers were walking straight into it. But they'd discover that tomorrow. Tonight, they still thought they were hunters. They didn't yet realize they'd become prey. The snow had stopped, leaving Riverside Academy looking like something from a postcard. Pristine white grounds, dark windows, the kind of peaceful silence that made you forget bad things could happen in places like this. Winter stood at the clubhouse window, watching the team load into 2 vans. No motorcycles tonight. Too loud, too obvious. This was a stealth operation. Reaper appeared beside her, already dressed in black tactical gear. You good? No, Winter crossed her arms. I should be going with you. We've been over this. I know the school better than Snake. I know which floorboards creak, which doors stick, which... Winter. Reaper turned her to face him. I need you here. Safe. If this goes wrong, if we get caught, the evidence dies with us. But if you're here, you can still tell the story. You can still save those girls. It was a good argument. Winter hated that it was a good argument. Promise me you'll be careful. Always am. Reaper kissed her forehead. Chains is staying here with you and the kid. Anything happens, anything feels wrong, you call Wade the lawyer, and you do not open the gates for anyone. Not state police, not feds, not God himself. Understood? Understood. Reaper headed for the door, then paused. Your mother would be proud of you, just so you know. Then he was gone, and Winter was left staring at the empty doorway, heart hammering in her chest. Cassian found her 20 minutes later, still standing at the window. They'll be fine, he said quietly. You don't know that. No, but I know your father, and I know men like him don't go down easy. Cassian handed her a mug of coffee. Chains made it, said you like it with too much sugar and not enough milk. Winter took the mug, managed a small smile. He's right. They sat on the couch in silence, watching the clock. 11:58, 11:59. Midnight. The team would be at the school now, Snake picking the lock on the fire exit, Razor disabling the security system. Reaper and the others moving through the dark hallways like ghosts. Winter's phone buzzes and text from Reaper. We're in. Radio silence until extraction. She showed Cassian. He nodded, but his leg was bouncing with nervous energy. How long should it take? 20 minutes to get to my locker, 5 to crack it, 10 to photograph everything, 20 minutes back to the exit, an hour, maybe less. And if something goes wrong, then we improvise. Winter tried to sound confident, but her voice wavered. The first 30 minutes crawled by. Winter paced. Cassian watched her pace. Chains sat at the kitchen table, cleaning his pistol with methodical precision, the kind of mindless task that kept hands busy and minds calm. At 12:45, Winter's phone buzzed again. Reaper. Evidence photographed and uploaded to 3 servers. Physical binders confiscated by state police who were waiting. It was a setup. They're arresting us. But the digital files are safe. Wade's been notified. Winter's chest constricted. They were waiting for them. Durant knew. Chains was on his feet instantly. Status on your dad? Arrested, but he got the evidence out first. Winter's hands were shaking. 3 servers. Durant can take the physical binders, but he can't touch the copies. Smart man, your father. Chains moved to the security monitors. Always has a backup plan. Before anyone could respond, the compound's perimeter alarm started screaming. All three of them froze. The alarm was a sound Winter had only heard during drills, a piercing wail that meant someone had breached the outer fence. Chains was moving before the echo faded, gun in hand, eyes on the monitors. Three vehicles, no lights, coming up the access road fast. His voice was granite calm. Winter, Cassian, panic room now. What? No, I'm not. That wasn't a request. Chains grabbed her arm, propelled her toward the hallway where a hidden door led to a reinforced room. You and the kid, inside. Lock it. Don't come out until you hear the all clear from me or your father. Nobody else. What about you? I'm going to find out who's stupid enough to roll up on an MC clubhouse at 1 in the morning. Chains shoved them toward the panic room. Move. Winter grabbed Cassian's hand and ran. Behind them, she heard Chains on the radio. Prez, we got company. 3 vehicles, unknown hostiles. Winter and the kid are secure. Static. Then Reaper's voice, broken and distant. Can't extract. Police everywhere. It's a setup. Get her safe. Then nothing. The panic room was a reinforced box built into the clubhouse foundation. 8 feet by 10 feet, concrete walls, steel door, no windows. Security monitors showing feeds from cameras around the compound. A radio, a phone line, a gun safe. Winter locked the door behind them and immediately went to the monitors. On screen 1, she could see 3 black SUVs at the gate. On screen 2, Chains was on the front porch, rifle visible but not aimed, projecting controlled threat. On screen 3, Winter's stomach dropped. Screen 3 showed Riverside Academy, the back parking lot, 6 police cars with lights flashing, and Reaper on his knees with hands behind his head, being zip-tied by state police. No, 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 no. Winter's hands flew over the radio controls. Dad, come in. Anyone, come in. Static. They jammed the signal. Cassian was at the monitors, his voice tight. Look, the officers at school aren't wearing body cameras. And those SUVs at our gate, no plates. He was right. Winter zoomed in on screen 1. The SUVs were expensive, Escalades maybe, but the plates had been removed or covered. This wasn't official. This was something else. On screen 1, a man got out of the lead SUV. Winter enhanced the image and felt her blood turn to ice. Victor Durant, the DA himself at the Iron Reaper's clubhouse at 1 in the morning. This is bad, Winter whispered. This is really bad. Victor walked up to the gate like he owned it. Through the monitor's audio feed, his voice came through, smooth, authoritative, the voice of someone used to being obeyed. I'm District Attorney Victor Durant. I'm here to serve a warrant for the arrest of Winter Ashford on charges of breaking and entering, theft of evidence, and obstruction of justice. Winter's mind reeled. I didn't break into anything. I was here the whole time. But Cassian was shaking his head, pointing at screen 3. Look at the timestamp in the corner of the frame. The security footage from the school. Timestamp, 12:47 a.m., and in the corner of the frame, partially visible, someone in a cheerleading jacket. Someone with long dark hair, someone who looked from a distance exactly like Winter. They planted someone, Winter breathed. Someone dressed like me to create evidence that I was there. Making it look like you masterminded the break-in. Cassian's face was pale. They're framing you. If they arrest you now, your evidence would become suspect. Anything you say looks like you're trying to avoid charges. On the monitor, Chains was speaking. You got a warrant? Show it to our lawyer, Wade Brennan. You got his number. I'm not playing games, Victor's voice hardened. Winter Ashford is inside that building, and I'm taking her into custody. Now open the gate or I'll have it torn down. You touch this gate without proper paperwork, it's trespassing. Chain's voice carried absolute conviction. I got 12 brothers inside who take property rights real serious. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Chains didn't move. You want the girl? Show me a legit warrant signed by a judge. Until then, you're just some guy making noise at my fence. Victor smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You know what I think? I think you're harboring a fugitive. That gives me probable cause. And since this is an MC Clubhouse, known criminal enterprise, I'm authorized to use any means necessary. He gestured and men poured out of the SUVs. Not regular police. Private security, maybe, or off-duty cops doing side work. They carried bolt cutters, battering rams. Winter watched in horror as they approached the gate. We have to do something. We're locked in a panic room. Cassian's voice was strained. What can we do? I can call Wade. Winter grabbed the landline, dialed. It rang twice before the lawyer answered, voice thick with sleep. This is Winter Ashford. We're under attack. Victor Durant is trying to breach the clubhouse with a fake warrant. He doesn't have legitimate authorization. We need... Slow down. Wade's voice sharpened instantly. Where's Reaper? Arrested at the school. It was a setup. They're framing me for the break-in, but I was here the whole time. The panic room has security footage proving it. Can you prove continuous presence? Yes, I'm on camera from 6 p.m. until now. Good. Don't delete that footage. Don't let anyone access it. Wade's voice was rapid fire now. I'm calling Judge Morrison. He owes me a favor. If I can get an emergency injunction, I can stop Durant from entering. But Winter, if they breach before I get the paperwork, I know, we're sitting ducks. Stay in the panic room. Don't come out for anyone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. Winter turned back through the monitors just as the men with bolt cutters reached the gate. Chains raised his rifle. Last warning. Touch that gate and there will be consequences. Victor Durant's smile widened. You just threatened a district attorney. That's a felony. Boys, you are authorized to use force. What happened next was chaos. The bolt cutters bit into the chain. Chains fired a warning shot into the air. Not at anyone, just a clear message. The men scattered, drew their own weapons, and suddenly there were a dozen guns pointed at one man on a porch. Chains, fall back! Winter screamed at the monitor, even though she knew he couldn't hear. Please, fall back! But Chains was an Iron Reaper. This was MC property. He'd been VP for 20 years, had stood with Reaper through wars and federal investigations. He wasn't backing down. You got 5 seconds, Chains called. Then I defend my property under Connecticut Castle Doctrine. 5, 4, 3. Stand down! A new voice amplified by megaphone. Winter's heart leaped as real police cars, marked state police units with lights and sirens, came screaming up the access road. The vehicles formed a barrier between the SUVs and the clubhouse. An officer Winter recognized, Captain Patricia Walsh, a hard woman but a fair one, stepped out with her sidearm drawn. Everyone lower your weapons, now. She looked at Victor Durant. Mr. Durant, care to explain why you're conducting an arrest on private property at 1 a.m. without informing the state police? Victor's smile didn't falter. Just doing my job, Captain. I have a warrant. Show it. It's in my vehicle. Then get it. Because right now, this looks like vigilante justice, Captain Walsh's voice was steel. And I don't care if you're the DA. Law applies to everyone. Winter watched as Victor's expression finally cracked. Just slightly. He was weighing options, push forward and risk charges from Captain Walsh, or retreat and lose his window. He chose retreat. Fine, we'll do this by the book. Victor signaled his men to stand down. But Captain, be advised. Winter Ashford is wanted for questioning. When I come back with proper authorization, I expect your full cooperation. When you come back with a legitimate warrant from a real judge, you'll have it. Captain Walsh's tone left no room for argument. Until then, clear out. The SUVs retreated. Victor Durant shot one last look at the clubhouse, a look that promised this wasn't over, then climbed into his vehicle and drove away. Captain Walsh approached the gate. Chains, you okay? Been better, Captain. Thanks for the save. Thank Wade Brennan. He called Judge Morrison, who called me. She looked up at the clubhouse. Winter Ashford inside? Chains didn't answer directly. You got a warrant? No, and I'm not looking to search. I'm here to make sure nobody else breaks the law tonight. She paused. But tell Winter, Durant's not stopping. He'll manufacture a warrant by morning. When he comes back, I can't stop him. Understood. Tell her to document everything. Tell her there are cops who still believe in justice over politics. Captain Walsh's voice softened slightly. She's not alone in this. Then she left, and Chains was alone on the porch with his rifle and his loyalty. Winter was out of the panic room before Cassian could stop her. She flew through the clubhouse and threw herself at Chains. The big man caught her, held her while she shook. Easy, girl, we're okay. Dad's not okay, he's in custody. And Wade's working on getting him released. Your father's not some nobody they can disappear. Chains guided her back inside. He'll be out by morning. But the evidence is safe. I watched them upload everything before the cops rolled. It's digital now, stored in 3 locations. Your Chain's grin was wolfish. Snake sent copies to an encrypted server. Razor emailed them to Wade. Mouse live-streamed the whole photographing process to a private channel we use for club business. Every page, every document you collected is backed up 6 ways from Sunday. Winter could have kissed him. You brilliant bastard. Learn from the best. Chains looked at Cassian. You okay, kid? I'm fine, just Cassian's voice was tight. What happens now? Now we wait for Wade. Chains moved to the kitchen, started making coffee. And you two are going to write down everything that happened tonight. Every detail. We document everything. They spent the next 2 hours doing exactly that. Writing statements, reviewing security footage, building a timeline that proved Winter was at the clubhouse when the break-in occurred. Cassian, with his photographic memory for details, helped fill in gaps. Times, faces, exact quotes. By 3 a.m., they had a file that would make any prosecutor weep. By 3:30, Wade arrived with Judge Morrison's emergency injunction. By 4, they had word that Reaper and the brothers were being processed at the state police barracks, not county jail, which was good. State police meant Captain Walsh's jurisdiction. By 5 a.m., Winter was exhausted, wired on coffee, and angrier than she'd ever been. He tried to frame me. She paced the clubhouse living room. He sent someone dressed like me. He brought private security to raid the clubhouse. He was going to, what? Arrest me? Discredit me? Discredit you. Cassian's voice was quiet but certain. If Durant arrests you for breaking and entering, your evidence becomes suspect. Everything you say looks like you're trying to avoid charges. He neutralizes you without killing you. Winter stopped pacing. That's actually brilliant. Evil, but brilliant. His mistake was thinking you were alone. Cassian leaned forward. He's used to dealing with isolated victims, girls with no families, kids with no resources. He didn't count on you having an army. We need to hit back, Winter said. We have the evidence. We need to use it before he can do more damage. How? Cassian asked. He's the DA. He controls prosecutions. Then we go over his head. Winter's jaw set. Federal prosecutors, FBI, someone who, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Winter Ashford? A female voice, professional, slight southern accent. My name is Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI. Judge Morrison forwarded me some interesting security footage from tonight. I'd like to talk to you about Victor Durant. Winter's knees went weak. She sat down hard. You believe me? I believe evidence. And the judge says you have quite a bit of it. Agent Torres paused. The FBI has been investigating irregularities in Durant's office for 6 months. We've suspected corruption, but couldn't prove it. If you have evidence connecting him to human trafficking, that changes everything. Can we meet? Yes, when? How about now? I'm parked outside your gates. Winter looked at Chains, who'd been listening on speaker. He nodded once. Let her in, but I'm sitting in on the meeting, and we record everything. Agreed, came the reply. Agent Rebecca Torres was maybe 45, a black woman with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that commanded respect without demanding it. She accepted coffee from Chains, sat down at the conference table, and opened a laptop. Show me what you've got. Winter had prepared for this moment, had organized the evidence in her mind 100 times. She started with the missing girls, names, faces, last known locations. Sierra Cooper, Melissa Torres, Alicia Martin, 3 others. 6 girls total, all aged 14 to 17, all from vulnerable backgrounds. She showed the attendance patterns, the connection to Clayton Durant. The recordings she'd made of him recruiting Alicia with promises of modeling opportunities. The timeline of disappearances correlating with Victor Durant's travel schedule, always when he was out of town, always with perfect alibis, but too coincidental to be random. She showed the photos she'd taken of Clayton meeting with unknown men in expensive cars, the documentation of each girl's last known activities, the social media accounts that had gone silent overnight, the homework still in lockers, the few precious possessions left behind. These girls hadn't run away. They'd been taken. Agent Torres listened without interrupting, took notes, asked clarifying questions. When Winter finished, the agent sat back and exhaled slowly. 6 girls, and nobody investigated. People noticed, Winter said quietly. They just didn't care. You cared. I cared too late. You're 17. Agent Torres's voice was firm. You did more than most adults would do. You documented everything. That takes courage. She closed the laptop. Here's what happens next. I'm opening a federal investigation into Victor Durant, his office, and this trafficking operation. Winter, I need you to make an official statement. Everything you saw, heard, documented. Okay, but understand, this is going to get ugly. Durant will come out after you. He'll try to discredit you, intimidate you. Agent Torres met Winter's eyes. Can you handle that? Winter thought about her mother, about the runaway girl her mother had died protecting, about 6 girls still out there somewhere. Yes, I can handle it. Good, Agent Torres stood. I'm offering protective custody, FBI safe house, you and anyone you want to bring. No, Winter stood too. I'm staying here. This is my home. My family. Winter, if I disappear into protective custody, Durant wins. He controls the narrative. Says I'm unstable. Winter's voice was steel. I stay here. I stay visible. And I dare him to try something with the whole world watching. Agent Torres and Chains exchanged looks. She sounds like Reaper, Chains observed. Is that good? It's terrifying. But yeah, it's good. Chains crossed his arms. We can provide security. We got protocols. And now we got the FBI watching. Agent Torres considered. Against my better judgment, I'm agreeing. But Winter, you don't leave this compound without FBI escort. And if I say move to a safe house, you move. Deal? Deal. Now I need to talk to your father. When's he being released? Should be soon, Chains said, checking his phone. Wade got the charges dropped. Illegal search, entrapment. State police are cutting him loose. As if on cue, motorcycle engines rumbled in the distance. Winter's heart leaped. She ran to the window and saw them. Reaper in the lead, 5 brothers behind him, looking tired and furious but intact. She was out the door before anyone could stop her, running through the snow in socks. Reaper saw her coming, killed his engine, and caught her as she launched herself at him. I'm okay, baby girl. I'm okay. They set you up. Durant tried to frame me and he sent fake cops and I know. Wade told me everything. Reaper held her tight, but we got the evidence out. We got the FBI involved. We're going to end him. He has those girls, Dad, somewhere, and every day we don't find them is another day they suffer, I know. Reaper pulled back, looked at his daughter's face. But Durant doesn't understand what he started. He picked a fight with the wrong family. He looked past Winter to where Agent Torres stood in the doorway. You FBI? Yes, sir, Agent Rebecca Torres. You here to help or just watch? Both, but mostly help. Torres came down the steps. Your daughter has evidence that could bring down one of the most corrupt DAs in New England. I want to see that through. Reaper studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Then let's get to work. The clubhouse had transformed into a command center. Agent Torres had called in 2 more FBI agents. Wade arrived with stacks of legal documents. Captain Walsh sent over incident reports from the night's events, and slowly, methodically, they built an airtight case against Victor Durant. But Winter couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that they were missing something critical. We have evidence of trafficking, she said, staring at the evidence board they'd constructed. We have proof Durant's covering it up, but we still don't know where the girls are. Finding them is the FBI's job now, Agent Torres said, typing on her laptop. We'll subpoena Durant's phone records, his financial transactions, property records. We'll find them. That takes time. Winter's voice was tight. How long? Days? Weeks? What if Durant realizes we're closing in and moves them? Or she couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't say what everyone was thinking. Cassian spoke up from his corner of the room. He won't kill them, not yet. Everyone turned to look at him. He'd been quiet most of the day, observing, thinking. Now he met their stares without flinching. Think about it, Cassian continued. The girls are assets. They're what's making Durant money. Trafficking them, selling them, whatever he's doing. If he kills them, he loses his revenue stream. He'll move them first, try to cover his tracks. That gives us time. How much time? Agent Torres asked. Depends how fast he realizes how much evidence we have. Cassian stood up, walked to the evidence board. He knows about the school break-in. He knows Winter has been investigating. But does he know about the 3 server backups? Does he know the FBI is involved? Not yet, Torres said. We've kept this quiet. No warrants issued yet, no official investigation announced. As far as Durant knows, he successfully seized the physical binders and arrested your father. He thinks he's contained the threat. Then we have a window. Cassian looked at Winter. Maybe 24 hours before he realizes the evidence is still out there. Before then, he'll feel safe. He won't move the girls because he doesn't think he needs to. Winter's mind raced. So we use that window. We find them before he knows we're looking. The FBI can't move that fast, Agent Torres said. Warrants, surveillance, building probable cause. That all takes time we don't have. But we can. Reaper's voice cut through the room like a blade. Everyone looked at him. The Iron Reapers aren't bound by warrants or probable cause. We can go places you can't, do things you can't. Sir, I can't officially condone. I'm not asking you to. Reaper's eyes were hard. I'm telling you what's going to happen. My daughter's been investigating this for months. She knows more about these girls than anyone, and we're going to find them. And if you find them, then what? Storm and guns blazing? Torres shook her head. That gets people killed. No. Winter stepped forward. We find them, confirm the location, and you handle the extraction. Legal, clean, no vigilante justice. She looked at her father. We're not criminals, Agent Torres. We're just people who can move faster than bureaucracy. Torres studied them both for a long moment. Then she closed her laptop. Officially, I can't support this. Unofficially, you have 12 hours. If you find something concrete, you call me immediately. We'll coordinate the rescue through proper channels. Agreed, Reaper said. And Winter? Torres looked at her directly. This isn't a game. If you go looking, you might find things you can't unsee. Are you prepared for that? Winter thought about the 6 faces on the evidence board. 6 girls who'd been invisible to everyone but her. 6 girls who were running out of time. Yes, I'm prepared. They gathered in the clubhouse's main room, 20 Iron Reapers, Winter, Cassian, and a plan that was equal parts desperation and hope. We're looking for 6 teenage girls being held somewhere in the greater Hartford area, Reaper said, addressing the brothers. Most likely a warehouse, storage facility, or industrial building. Somewhere remote but accessible. Somewhere Durant can come and go without drawing attention. That's half the industrial district, Mouse pointed out. Could be 100 locations. Not if we narrow it down. Cassian stepped forward, nervous but determined. I've been thinking about this. Durant needs a place that's private but not abandoned. Abandoned buildings draw squatters, homeless people, cops checking for illegal activity. He needs somewhere with a legitimate cover, a business that explains vehicles coming and going. Like what? Wrench asked. Storage facility, Cassian said. Or a shipping company, or, he paused, thinking, a trucking company. Somewhere with shipping containers or semi-trailers. Mobile. If he needs to move the girls, he can do it fast. Winter's breath caught. Durant Logistics. Everyone looked at her. Victor Durant's brother owns Durant Logistics. It's a trucking company in the industrial district. Winter pulled out her phone, searched. Here, Durant Logistics, LLC. Owner, Marcus Durant. They ship freight up and down the East Coast. Shipping containers, Reaper said slowly. Big enough to hold people. Mobile if needed, and family-owned, so Victor has access without raising questions. It's perfect, Chain said. Too perfect. You sure about this? No, Winter admitted, but it's our best lead. Then we check it out. Reaper looked at his brothers. Mouse, Razor, you're on recon. Surveillance only. Find out what's there, what the security looks like. If anyone's being held, do not engage. We confirm first, then we call the FBI. And if we're wrong, Bayan, Snake asked, if the girls aren't there, then we expand the search, but we start here. Reaper pulled up a map on the big screen. Durant Logistics is here, off Route 5, near the rail yards. Commercial area, mostly empty on Sundays. Mouse, Razor, you go in quiet. Cameras, thermal imaging, whatever you need. Everyone else, stay on standby. We move fast once we have confirmation. Winter stepped forward. I'm going with them. The hell you are. Dad, I've seen these girls' photos every day for 2 months. I can identify them on sight. Mouse and Razor can't. Winter's voice was steady. You need me there. Reaper looked like he wanted to argue, but Chains cut in. She's right, Prez. If we're looking at faces through thermal or at a distance, we need someone who knows them. And Winter's been living with their files for months. Fine. Reaper's jaw was tight. But you wear full protective gear. You stay in the vehicle unless I give direct approval. And if shooting starts, you run, non-negotiable. Agreed. I'm coming too. Cassian's voice was quiet but firm. Kid, you don't have training for... I've been invisible for years. I know how to move without being seen. And I know that facility. I used to sleep in a boxcar near there. Cassian met Reaper's eyes. I can get you in places your brothers can't. Reaper studied the skinny teenager, saw something that made him nod slowly. All right, but same rules apply. You follow orders, you stay safe. They loaded up at 7 p.m., 2 vehicles, 7 people. Mouse drove the lead van with Razor, Winter, and Cassian. Reaper followed in his truck with Chains and Wrench. They carried surveillance equipment, cameras with telephoto lenses, thermal imaging gear. No weapons visible. Nothing that would turn this into a confrontation. This was reconnaissance, information gathering. They'd leave the heroics to the FBI. The drive took 30 minutes. Durant Logistics sat on 5 acres of cracked asphalt and rusted chain-link fence. The main building was a 2-story office structure, dark and empty on a Sunday evening. Behind it, rows of semi-trailers and shipping containers, most bearing the Durant Logistics logo. Security lights illuminated the perimeter, but the interior of the lot was dark. Mouse parked 2 blocks away in an alley with a clear view of the facility. Razor set up the thermal imaging camera, scanning for heat signatures. Main building's cold, Razor reported. No activity. But wait, got something. Container row, back left corner. Multiple heat signatures, could be 6, maybe 7 people. Winter's heart hammered. Where exactly? Razor showed her the thermal readout. 6 distinct heat signatures, clustered together in what looked like a large shipping container. Too many people for security guards. Too clustered for workers. That could be them, Winter whispered. That's the right number. Or it could be homeless people squatting, Mouse cautioned. We need visual confirmation. I can get closer. Cassian was already reaching for the door handle. The fence has gaps near the rail line. I've used them before. Too dangerous, Reaper's voice came through the radio. We call the FBI now. Let them handle it. And what if we're wrong, Cassian asked. What if it's not the girls? The FBI raids on our intel, finds nothing, and Durant gets tipped off that we're looking. Then he really does move them, and we've lost our only lead. Silence on the radio. Cassian was right, and everyone knew it. I can get in, get a visual, get out. Cassian's voice was steady. 5 minutes, nobody even knows I was there. Winter looked at him. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Cassian met her eyes. I've been watching girls disappear for months and telling myself it wasn't my business. I'm done watching. I'm done being invisible. Reaper's voice crackled through the radio. You got 5 minutes, kid, in and out. You see anything that confirms those are our targets, you signal and extract immediately. You get spotted, you run. Understood. Cassian slipped out of the van and disappeared into the darkness, like he'd been doing it his whole life, which Winter realized he probably had. Being invisible wasn't just a metaphor for Cashin, it was a survival skill he'd honed over years of going unnoticed. The minutes crawled by. Winter watched the thermal readout, watched Cashin's heat signature move through the lot like a ghost, weaving between containers, avoiding the security lights. He reached the target container, pressed himself against the side. Then he was moving again, faster now, back the way he came. He appeared at the van 3 minutes later, breathing hard, face pale. "It's them," he gasped. "All six. They're in a modified shipping container. Beds, buckets, chain-link divider. The girls are on one side, two men with guns on the other. They're guarded. In Winter," his voice cracked. "They look bad, thin, scared. One girl's hurt, maybe sick." Winter's hands clenched into fists. "We need to get them out. Now." "We call the FBI," Mouse said firmly, already pulling out his phone. "Like we agreed." "And how long until they get here? 30 minutes? An hour?" Winter's voice rose. "You said one girl looks sick. We might not have an hour. We also might get them killed if we rush in without a plan," Razor countered. "Those men have guns. We're not equipped for a firefight." "Then we make a plan." Reaper's voice cut through the argument. He climbed out of his truck, studied the facility with tactical precision. "Chains, get Agent Torres on the line. Tell her we've located the targets. Give her the address. Tell her we need immediate extraction. Mouse, how many guards did you count?" "Two in the container with the girls. Cashin?" "Two," Cashin confirmed. "Both armed. Handguns, not rifles. They looked bored, not alert." "Security on the perimeter?" "None that I saw. No guards, no dogs, just cameras on the main building and the front gate." Reaper nodded slowly. "Here's what we do. Agent Torres said she'd coordinate the rescue through proper channels. That means she'll bring hostage rescue team, multiple agents, probably SWAT backup. That takes time to mobilize. Minimum 30 minutes, probably closer to an hour." "Too long," Winter said. "If one of those girls is sick." "I know." Reaper looked at his daughter. "Which is why we're going to set up a perimeter now. Not engage, not rescue, just contain. We make sure those guards don't move the girls before the FBI arrives. We're insurance." "And if something goes wrong before the FBI gets here," Chains asked, "then we improvise." Reaper's expression was hard. "But our priority is keeping those girls safe until professional extraction arrives. We're not cowboys, we're not heroes. We're just making sure nobody runs before the cavalry shows up." Chains finished his call with Agent Torres. "She's mobilizing now. Hostage rescue team, medical support, the works. ETA is 45 minutes. 45 minutes. Winter looked at the thermal readout showing 6 heat signatures huddled together in a shipping container. 45 minutes felt like an eternity. "All right, Abbasfers." Reaper started issuing orders. "Mouse, Razor, north and south approaches. Stay dark, stay quiet. If anyone tries to enter or exit that facility, you report immediately. Chains, wrench, east and west. We create a box, nobody in, nobody out. Everyone stays on radio." "What about me?" Winter asked. "You stay in this van with me," Reaper said. "You're the one who can identify the girls when the FBI extracts them. That's your job." It wasn't what Winter wanted to hear, but she understood the logic. She nodded. The brothers dispersed into the darkness. Reaper stayed in the van with Winter and Cashin, monitoring the radio, watching the thermal readout. The 6 heat signatures in the container hadn't moved. The 2 guards were still there, stationary, probably sitting. 20 minutes passed, then 30. "FBI is 5 minutes out," Chains reported over the radio. "I can see their vehicles staging 2 blocks north." "Roger that, hold positions. Let them..." Mouse's voice cut through, urgent. "Movement at the container? One of the guards is on a phone call. Looks agitated." Winter's blood ran cold. "Someone tipped them off. Or they're getting routine instructions," Reaper said, but his voice was tight. "Guards moving now," Mouse reported. "Opening the container. Shit. They're loading the girls into a truck. Repeat, they're moving the girls." "FBI, where are you, Castro?" Reaper barked into the radio. Agent Torres's voice came through. 3 minutes. Do not engage. We're almost there." They're loading them now, Mouse said. 2 minutes and that truck's going to drive out of here. Reaper's jaw clenched. He was weighing options. Let the truck leave and try to follow, or move in now and risk a confrontation that could get the girls killed. Winter made the decision for him. She grabbed the van's door handle and opened it, stepping out before Reaper could stop her. Winter, get back in the... But she was already walking toward the facility, hands raised, visible in the security lights. Not threatening, not aggressive, just a teenage girl, alone and exposed. Hey, she called out. I'm looking for my sister. Has anyone seen a girl named Sierra? The two guards froze. One of them, a thick-necked man with a crew cut, pointed his gun at her. Get the hell out of here, kid. This is private property. I know, I'm sorry, but my sister ran away, and someone said they saw her around here, and I'm just... Winter's voice cracked convincingly. Please, I just want to make sure she's okay. She was 20 feet from the container now, close enough to see inside, close enough to see 6 terrified faces looking back at Bremner, and close enough to recognize them all. Sierra Cooper, Melissa Torres, Alicia Martin, the other 3 whose names she'd memorized. All 6. But all looking at Winter like she was either salvation or another nightmare they couldn't escape. Kid, I'm not going to tell you again. The guard advanced on her. Turn around and... FBI, drop your weapons. Agent Torres and 4 agents in tactical gear came around the corner, weapons drawn, moving with professional precision. The guards looked at their handguns, looked at the FBI assault rifles, and made the smart choice. They dropped their weapons. Hands behind your heads, on your knees, now. The takedown was textbook. Within 60 seconds, both guards were cuffed and on the ground. Medical personnel swarmed the container. Agent Torres was barking orders into her radio, coordinating with local police, securing the scene. And Winter was running toward the container, toward the 6 girls who were crying and shaking and alive. It's okay, Winter said, her own voice breaking. You're safe now. You're going home. Sierra Cooper, the first girl who'd disappeared, the one Winter had been searching for longest, looked at her with hollow eyes. Who are you? My name is Winter. I've been looking for you, all of you. Winter's tears were flowing freely now. You're not invisible anymore. I see you, we all see you. Behind her, Reaper appeared, put a hand on her shoulder. You did good, baby girl. I walked toward them, Winter said, voice shaking with adrenaline. I didn't think, if they'd gotten in that truck, if they'd driven away, but they didn't. You gave the FBI the time they needed. Reaper pulled her into a hug. Your mother would be so damn proud. Agent Torres approached, holstering her weapon. That was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. Don't ever do it again. Yes, ma'am. But, Torres allowed a small smile. You gave us cause to move immediately. Those girls are safe because you acted, so thank you. Paramedics were loading the girls into ambulances now. Winter watched each one, matching faces to the photos she'd been carrying in her mind for months. All 6, all alive. One with a fever, one with a sprained ankle, all of them dehydrated and traumatized, but alive. The guards were being loaded into FBI vehicles. Agent Torres was recording their statements, already building the case. And somewhere in his expensive house, Victor Durant had no idea that his entire operation had just collapsed. But he would, very soon. Victor Durant was in his office when the FBI arrived. Winter watched it on the news, footage of agents in tactical gear entering the district attorney's building, emerging 20 minutes later with Victor in handcuffs. Clayton Durant was arrested at his home. Marcus Durant, owner of Durant Logistics, was taken from the trucking facility. The news was calling it the biggest trafficking bust in Connecticut history. 6 girls rescued, 3 men arrested, a corruption investigation that reached the highest levels of state law enforcement. Winter watched it all from the clubhouse, surrounded by Iron Reapers who'd become her family, Cassian beside her, both of them exhausted and wired and triumphant. It's over, Cassian said quietly. You did it. We did it, Winter corrected. All of us. Reaper's phone rang. He answered, listened, then held it out to Winter. Agent Torres, she wants to talk to you. Winter took the phone. Hello? Winter, I wanted to update you personally. All 6 girls are being treated at Hartford General. They're going to be okay, physically at least. Mentally, it's going to take time. But they're alive because of you, because of a lot of people. Don't downplay what you did. You saw something wrong and refused to look away. You investigated when no one else would. You put yourself at risk to save people you'd never met. Agent Torres paused. That's the definition of heroism. Winter's throat tightened. What happens now to the girls, I mean? We're working with social services to find safe placements. Some have family, some don't, but we're making sure each one has support, therapy, housing, education. They're not going back to the systems that failed them. Good. That's good. In Winter, Victor Duran is facing federal trafficking charges. Clayton's being charged as an accessory. Marcus Durant is cooperating, giving us information about the full scope of the operation. This goes bigger than we thought. Connections to trafficking rings in 3 states. Your investigation didn't just save 6 girls. It opened a door to saving hundreds more. Winter had to sit down. Hundreds? Hundreds, maybe more. We're following the threads, but it all started with you refusing to be silent. After the call ended, Winter sat in silence, processing. 6 girls safe, hundreds more potentially saved. Victor Durant in custody, justice finally, for the invisible. You okay? Cashin asked. I think so. Are you? Yeah, Cashin smiled, a real smile, the first one Winter had seen from him. I think I might be. The Iron Reapers held a meeting. Not church, the formal gathering where club business was decided, but a family meeting. Everyone was there. Brothers, old ladies, prospects, even kids. And in the center of it all, Winter and Cashin. Reaper stood up, commanding silence without effort. Week ago, my daughter and this young man did something extraordinary. They saw evil and fought it. They saved lives at risk to their own. They showed courage that puts most men to shame. He looked at Winter. In recognition of that courage, the Iron Reapers would like to offer Winter Ashford an honorary patch. First female in club history to receive this honor. Winter stood up, feeling every eye on her. She walked to where Reaper held a leather cut, brand new with Iron Daughter patched across the back in a custom design, a sparrow with iron wings. This is incredibly meaningful, Winter said, and I'm honored, but I need to decline. Murmurs rippled through the room. Reaper's expression didn't change. Wait, because accepting this patch would mean I've earned my place, that I'm done proving myself. Winter's voice was steady. But I don't need a patch to prove I'm family. I need to create something bigger. She pulled out a folder. Those 6 girls we rescued, they're alive, but they're still vulnerable. They still need protection, support, resources. And there are hundreds more like them. Kids in foster care, kids on the streets, kids who are invisible to everyone who should be protecting them. Winter opened the folder, showed the business plan she'd been working on all week with Cassian's help. I want to start a foundation, Sparrow's Shield, a network of safe houses, support services, and advocacy for at-risk teens. Funded by the MC but operating independently. No patches required, just people willing to help kids who need it. Silence. Then chains started clapping. Slowly others joined in until the whole room was applauding. Reaper smiled, pride and love and respect all mixed together. That's my girl, always thinking bigger. He looked at the brothers. I propose the Iron Reapers commit to funding and supporting Sparrow's Shield. All in favor? A chorus of aye that shook the walls. Motion carries. Reaper extended his hand to Winter. You're not just my daughter anymore. You're a founder. You're a leader. You're exactly what your mother raised you to be. Winter shook his hand, then pulled him into a hug while the clubhouse erupted in cheers. Winter Ashford stood at a podium in the Connecticut State House, addressing a room full of legislators, advocates, and journalists. At 20 years old, she was a junior at Yale Law School, founder and president of Sparrow's Shield, and the youngest person to ever testify before the state legislature on trafficking prevention. 3 years ago, 6 girls disappeared from my high school, Winter said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. Nobody noticed, nobody cared. They were invisible. Foster kids, poor kids, troubled kids. The kind of kids society has learned to ignore. She pulled up photos on the screen behind her. 6 faces and everyone in Connecticut knew now. But they weren't invisible to everyone, because I saw them. A boy named Cassian Marlowe saw them, and together we refused to look away. Whoa, Winter clicked to the next slide. A graph showing the growth of Sparrow's Shield. In 3 years, Sparrow's Shield has opened 20 safe houses across New England. We've provided support to over 200 at-risk teens. We've prevented an estimated 47 potential trafficking victims from being targeted. And we've done it through partnership, law enforcement, social services, and yes, motorcycle clubs. Murmurs at that. The Iron Reapers were still controversial, still viewed with suspicion by many. But they'd proven themselves invaluable partners in protecting vulnerable kids. I'm here today to ask you to support Bill 847, the Invisible No More Act. This bill increases funding for foster care oversight, mandates trafficking awareness training for teachers and social workers, and creates a statewide database to track missing at-risk youth. Winter's voice strengthened. These kids deserve better than to disappear without anyone noticing. They deserve to be seen. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Winter stepped down from the podium and was immediately surrounded by reporters, advocates, people wanting to shake her hand. Cassian appeared at her elbow, tall and confident now, no longer the skinny, invisible boy, but the director of operations for Sparrow's Shield. You killed it. The bill's going to pass. You think? I know. I counted votes. We've got the support. Cassian grinned. How's it feel to change the world? Exhausting, Winter laughed, but worth it. They pushed through the crowd and out to the steps of the State House, where 50 motorcycles were parked in perfect formation. The Iron Reapers, still supporting, still protecting. Reaper stood by his road king, arms crossed, face impassive. But when Winter reached him, his expression softened. Your mother would be proud, he said simply. I know, you tell me that a lot. Because it's true. He pulled something from his jacket, a framed photograph. Found this in storage. Thought you'd want to see it. Winter took the frame. The photo showed her mother at maybe 25, standing with a teenage girl, helping her clearly, though Winter didn't recognize the girl. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, protection isn't chains, it's wings. Winter's eyes burned. She was doing the same thing, helping kids. She was, and she'd be proud that you're carrying on her work, doing it better than she ever could. Reaper's voice was rough with emotion. You saved those girls, Winter. But more than that, you built something that'll save hundreds more. That's legacy. They stood in silence for a moment, father and daughter, both thinking of the woman who taught them that the strongest steel comes from the hottest fire. Come on, Reaper said finally. We're having a celebration at the clubhouse. Your 6 girls are coming, the ones we rescued. They wanted to see you. Winter's heart soared. All 6? I haven't seen some of them in months. All 6. They're doing good, Winter. Really good. Because of you. The celebration was everything Winter had dreamed it would be. The 6 girls were there. Sierra Cooper, now 19 and in college studying social work. Melissa Torres, 18, working as an advocate for Sparrow's Shield. Alicia Martin, 17, finishing high school with straight A's. The others all thriving on building lives they'd almost lost. They told their stories, talked about the darkness and the light, thanked Winter and Cassian and the Iron Reapers for seeing them when nobody else would. You saved us, Sierra said, standing to address the crowd. But more than that, you taught us that being seen isn't something we have to beg for. It's something we deserve. And now we're paying it forward, helping other kids who feel invisible. As the night wound down, Winter found herself on the clubhouse porch with Cassian, watching the sun set over the compound. You ever think about that night? Cassian asked. The blizzard, the coat. Every day, Winter looked at him. You gave me your mother's jacket, the only thing you had left of her. Simple math, Cassian said, echoing his words from 3 years ago. You needed it more. It wasn't simple math, it was sacrifice. It was love. Winter pulled something from her bag, Cassian's original jacket, the one he'd given her that night, carefully cleaned and preserved. I've kept this safe, been waiting for the right moment to give it back. Cassian took the jacket with shaking hands, held it like the precious thing it was. Thank you. No, thank you. Winter gestured at the clubhouse, the celebration, the life they'd built. None of this happens if you don't give me that coat, if you don't save my life. And none of this happens if you don't investigate the girls, if you don't refuse to stay silent. Cassian smiled. We saved each other, Winter. That's the point. Nobody has to be invisible if someone's willing to see them. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their family celebrate inside. 6 girls who'd been found, 200 more who'd been protected, a foundation that would outlive them both, keeping kids safe for generations. Hey, Winter, Cassian said quietly. Remember when you asked me why I gave you the coat? I said the math was simple, but I lied. Winter looked at him. What do you mean? The math wasn't simple, the choice was. Cassian met her eyes, because in that moment, I could walk past, stay invisible, stay safe, or I could stop. And I'd spent my whole life walking past. I was tired of it, so I stopped. And everything changed. Winter understood. That's what you taught me. That's what this whole thing taught me. Being invisible is safe, being seen is terrifying, but being seen is the only way to live. Yeah, Cassian smiled. Exactly. Inside the clubhouse, someone called their names. Time to cut the cake, make more speeches, celebrate the victories they'd fought so hard to win. But for one more moment, Winter and Cassian stood on the porch. 2 kids who'd been invisible in different ways, who'd found each other in a snowstorm, who'd built something beautiful from sacrifice and courage. The Iron Daughter and the Sparrow. No longer invisible, no longer silent, finally fully, completely seen. The documentary was called Invisible No More, the Winter Ashford Story. It premiered at Sundance, won awards, aired on Netflix. It told the story of 6 missing girls, a teenage investigator, and a motorcycle club that changed everything. But the best part, Winter thought, as she watched the premiere with Reaper, Cassian, and all 6 rescued girls, wasn't the awards or the recognition. Since Winter Ashford founded Sparrow Shield in 2025, the organization has opened 87 safe houses in 15 states, protected over 2,000 at-risk youth, prevented an estimated 300 trafficking cases, partnered with 50 motorcycle clubs nationwide, changed laws in 12 states, but most importantly, made sure that no child ever has to be invisible again. Cassian's original jacket framed and displayed at Sparrow Shield headquarters with a plaque beneath it. This coat changed everything, not because it was warm, but because someone chose to give it away. Sometimes the greatest gift is being seen, and sometimes the greatest courage is choosing to see. The credits rolled, the audience applauded, and Winter Ashford, no longer invisible, no longer silent, no longer afraid, stood and took a bow. She'd started with one coat and one choice. She'd ended with a movement that would protect vulnerable kids for generations to come. Her mother had been right. Protection isn't chains. It's wings. And Winter had given so many children the wings to fly.